Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gretchen, and today I am here with my final thoughts for this year's Booker Prize. So the winner is being announced tomorrow. I can't believe that we are at the point now where we're gonna know the winner soon. It felt like it was so far away, but it actually snuck up on me. I don't know why I thought it was being announced on Tuesday, but it's actually tomorrow. I thought I had an extra day to get all of my videos out there, so you're going to be flooded with them today, so my apologies. But I did want to take a minute to talk about my personal ranking of the shortlisted titles, also talk about the book that I think is going to win, and then also just give a couple final thoughts about this year's prize in general. So the first thing that I will say is that if you follow my channel, you know that I love this prize. It's my favorite literary prize of the year, and the reason that I have always loved it is the source often for some of my favorite books of the year. It never fails. Every year I usually find at least 2 or 3 titles from the Booker Prize long list that end up making it on to my personal favorite reads of any given year. And when that long list came out and I had all of these new books to read, I was so excited because I knew buried in there were 2 or 3 books that were going to absolutely blow me away. And unfortunately, that was not my experience this year, and it was a little disappointing because I do tend to put a lot of stock into this long list, and I do know that I'm going to be introduced to a lot of great books. And I'm not saying that the books were bad. I thought that most of the books this year were deserving of a read, but there weren't too many that really stood out to me, with the exception of Endling. Endling is my little diamond in the rough. I love this book so much, and it is going to be one of my top reads, if not my top read of the end of the year. And I say that because we still have, you know, a little under 2 months to go. I could certainly read, you know, a favorite between now and then. But Endling not making it, I'm bitter about it, of course, but I am still thankful that I had an opportunity to find this book. This was one that was not really on my radar until there started to be buzz about the Booker, so I am really thankful that this book came into my life because I loved it. However, when the shortlist was announced, I looked at those books, and for the most part, I could understand how all of them made it onto the list. The only one that I would say I was confused about was The Rest of Our Lives. And if I had my way personally, Endling would have taken the place of The Rest of Our Lives. But, you know, that's not up to me. That's, of course, up to the judges. But I can see there is an argument, I should say, for every other book on here making it to the short list. And of course there are arguments for The Rest of Our Lives, but yeah, personally I would have loved to see Endling in that spot. Now, working with the list that we have, I will tell you my preference, and we'll start with the book that I liked the least, and we'll work up to the one that I enjoyed the most. And I'm not going to talk a whole lot about these books. I'm really just going to rank them and move on because I have done standalone reviews for all of these, so my opinions about them and a more in-depth discussion about each of them is available if you're curious. So yeah, I will just start with my least favorite and work up. My least favorite, I will say, is a surprise to me. At the beginning of the prize season, whenever the long list was announced, I would have predicted that this book would have been one of my favorites, but sadly I just didn't gel with it, and that is The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny by Karen Desai. Now, this is a book that I am going to keep on my shelf, and I want to maybe eventually revisit at a different time because I think that this book does have potential. It may have just been a case that I read this book at the wrong time in my life. I mentioned in a previous video that during this prize season, I did experience a bit of a reading slump, so that could very much have impacted my feelings about several of these books. So I don't want to give up on this book entirely. I would maybe like to revisit it in the future, but based on, what I know about it and my recent experience with it, I am putting it at my number 6. My number 5, I'm going to go with The Rest of Our Lives by Ben Markovitz. I know that this was a lot of people's least favorite and probably came in at a lot of people's 6th place, but I actually enjoyed my time with this one. I thought it was a simple, quaint book. It talked about very relatable themes and things that a lot of people experience in their life, and I just found it to be very relatable, and I found the characters charming, and I thought that it was an easy read and one that I didn't have to invest a whole lot of time or thought into. Everything was very much out in the open and on the surface, and I appreciated it for that. Coming in at number 4, I feel like this is a book that's going to be a lot higher on a lot of people's lists, but once again, it kind of fell into the trap that The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny fell into for me, which was, it was a very long and involved book, and I was kind of going through that slump, and I definitely felt like this read felt more like a slog than it probably normally would have if I hadn't been struggling in my reading life at that time, and that is Flashlight by Susan Choi. I totally understand the merits of this book, and I can see why so many people have enjoyed it, but I think that once again, because I just wasn't in the correct mind space as a reader, that a lot of this book was lost on me, and it's another one that I could potentially revisit in the future and think that I would maybe get a lot more out of it. My third favorite was, and when I get to the third, this is kind of where I really started to struggle to find the ordering of how I would rank them, but I am going to go with The Land in Winter in my third spot. This is the book that I have most recently finished, and I really did enjoy my time with this book. This covered a lot of themes, and it was very atmospheric, and I think that these characters are ones that I'm going to think about for a long time, and it definitely made an impression on me, but I think the other 2 books impacted me just slightly more than that one. Now, when we get to our number 2 and our number 1, if you would have asked me a couple weeks ago between these 2 books which one I would have at my number 1 and which one I would have at my number 2, they would have been flipped, because I cannot stop thinking about one of these books, and I have gone down a rabbit hole with this particular book, which I'll talk about in a minute, but my number 2 is Audition by Katie Kitamura. I loved this book. This was a very good book. I thought that this book, of all of the ones on this list, did something different, and it was unexpected, and it was not a book that or it was a type of book that I hadn't read before. And I'm sure there are books that are doing similar things out there, but for me, it was the first time as a reader I got to experience something like that. And it was short, it was very sparse, and I really enjoyed my time with it. And I know that there are a lot of readers out there that felt very similar about this book. But the one that I am actually putting in my number 1 spot on the short list is very surprising to me, and that's going to be Flesh by David Saloy. This is a book that I kind of went back and forth with when I was reading it. I will honestly say I didn't think too much about this book. It was an interesting read, but it's one that has settled in me, and it's one that I keep going back to. And of all of these books, this is the one that I keep hearing about, and the more I hear people talking about this book, the more I realized how much I enjoyed my time with it. And specifically, I listened to an interview that he did with Dua Lipa. Dua Lipa has a podcast, a book podcast, and she does talk to different authors about books. She recently did one with Margaret Atwood, which was fantastic, but she specifically did one with David Saloy, and she talked about this book with him, and there were so many parts of this book that were lost on me during my reading, and having listened to him have that conversation with her and answer all of those questions, it really opened my mind up even more to that book, and it made me appreciate it all the more. So yeah, my personal favorite from this list, I would have to say, would be Flesh, but my overall favorite from this year in general was Endling. And then as far as the book that I am going to predict to be the winner, this is also really, really tough. But at the end of the day, obviously, with what is here, I would love to see Flesh make it. Audition would obviously be a close second based on personal preference, but if I were not to pick my personal number one, I would say Flashlight, I think, is going to be the one if it doesn't go to my favorite, which is Flesh. So Flashlight. I think that Flashlight was a very quiet book, and I think that it was a book that has a lot in it that I feel like if I went down a rabbit hole and kind of did the same thing with Flesh, where I listened to a lot of author interviews and I had a lot of information coming directly from the author about her intent and the writing process, and learned a little bit more about her characters or her characterization and why she did the things she did with theme and things like that, that I could definitely appreciate that book a lot more. And I just feel like looking at the previous winners of the Booker over the last few years, it seems like it's been a while where we've had a book that was really character heavy and really kind of like that saga with a long period of time in people's lives. Flashlight covered a very long time in people's lives, and there was a lot going on in it. So I think maybe it's time for a book like that to win. So yeah, we'll see. So personal fave, Flesh. My predicted winner, Flashlight. I could be completely wrong, and I am happy to be wrong. I think all of these books do have a good chance, with the exception of The Rest of Our Lives. I really don't see that one coming through. So yeah, those are my predictions. Those are my final thoughts. I'm really curious to start to hear what you think the winner is going to be, and then also what your personal favorite is, because those are often two very different things. I also want to thank you for following me again on this Booker journey. I absolutely love doing this every year with the standalone videos for each of them. I do still owe you Sea Scraper. I will not forget. I did just finish it, so I will get fully that filmed. Probably not today because I have a lot of editing to do, because I just filmed my review for The Land in Winter and One Boat, so I will get those out, and then I do still owe you Sea Scraper. But until that happens, please enjoy the last few moments of this Booker season. If you are actively trying to finish any of these books that are on the short list, good luck. I hope that you make it, and until we read again, bye.